most people won't know that you and I qualified to be personal trainers at the same time.
Yeah, you've been stuck with me for a long time.
Since September 2016.
It's been 84 years.
Iron Ian and Shauna Rahaman, you've been a constant thorn in my side. But so I can remember when I think back to like Image Fitness, what my motivations were to do it. Like, why did I, like, for me, the big motivation to get into fitness was I had kind of found something that could be a career path that I seemed to be like decent at. Whereas like everything else career-wise always seemed like an uphill battle. Like I'd done security, I'd worked in retail, but everything else, and I obviously coached pro wrestling, which was just like a fake profession, you know? So I knew why I wanted to do it, but what was your little journey to get from wherever you were starting in the gym up to I'm going to qualify to be a personal trainer?
So when I was in school and stuff, my mom got into training being cardio like every day of the week. And one of the days she was like, come to the gym with me. So I went, started doing cardio, did the good girl, bad girl machine, and then I left. But as I went through college and stuff, I didn't really go anymore. And then coming to the end, I used to do music in college, and coming to the end of that course, I found a keto diet.
Oh, yeah.
And I started feeling better in my body. And then because I started feeling better in my body, my boyfriend was like, why don't we go to the gym together? Which we don't do anymore. And we started training. And from there, I was like, oh, if I could help people, to understand when you know what you're doing in the gym, you're going to feel so much better. That would be like the best job ever. Now, looking back, I actually hadn't a clue what I was doing. I got a program from a guy in the gym. It was like upper body, lower body, full body, kind of 3-day job. And when I joined Image Fitness and learned that there was so much more to learn, it actually got more exciting for me because I was like a small fish in a big pond. I had so much more to learn. And I kind of just started from there then. When I got a job in Flyefit, I still didn't know what I was doing. And then you were in Flyefit. There was a lot of us on the team and we were all kind of learning from each other. I kind of just went from there then.
So it's been like a constant like snowball as time goes. Don't worry about it. As time goes, like you I think that's kind of like a big thing when people start anything. It's only when you look back, you go, geez, I knew nothing. But it's kind of, it's better to take imperfect action than perfect non-action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could have the best plan and never action it, whereas you could be a complete fuck up and still just start and you'll get somewhere. Is the keto diet, was that infamous picture of you looking like a wraith? Like where you're just like, ugh.
Oh my God. My eyes were too big for my head. Like I just lost so much weight. I think I lost 2 stone in 9 weeks.
Jesus.
And you know yourself, like, well, I don't know if you've ever been overweight and then you lost loads of weight and people would be encouraging you, being like, you look so good. Sometimes you look good, but you're actually really not healthy on the inside. And that was me. Like I wasn't healthy at all. My relationship with food was so bad. And the encouragement from other people was making me think like, oh, I look great. Everyone is saying this is good for me. And kind of got me in a bad cycle of restriction and then binging. So I started a keto diet. And I actually bought, you know, the little sticks that you wee on, and it tells you if you're in ketosis.
There's ketones in your pee.
Once I have something in my head, I'm like, right, I'm going to do it. So every morning I'd wake up and be like, oh, am I still in ketosis? And then it would be like, yeah. And whenever you'd eat too much carbs, I think I could have like 30, 40 grams of carbs before I'd be knocked out of ketosis. And it would ruin my whole entire day. I remember it was my birthday and we got a Domino's, and the next day I woke up and I was like 7 pounds heavier on the scale because number one, you're going to put on water weight if you're eating a load of carbs. And then if you're never eating carbs and you eat a full Domino's pizza, you're going to be in bits the next day, which I was. But when I stood on the scale, it ruined my whole day. Like,
yeah,
it's so sad.
That's I think a really big misunderstanding the average person has about like meals like that. Like, so Domino's, obviously it's going to be quite high calorie in any case, but it's going to be loaded with like carbohydrate, fats and sodium. So your water retention is going to be higher. And like that, if you're in ketosis, you're not storing any muscle glycogen. So you're very depleted. So I'd imagine your body probably was like, oh my God, glycogen, glucose, give me this. But yeah, I can imagine with the feedback cycle you were in of what your value was of standing on the scales. Did you feel like you had a big clay belly after?
I actually must pull out a photo and show you. There was like the day before I used to take all my progress photos. So took my progress photos on the Sunday. That night got a Domino's. Monday morning, I was actually shocked when I looked in the mirror. You know when you're so bloated that you press the top of your belly and it's proper hard? I was so uncomfortable. And I looked like it looked like the photos were a month apart because not only was I bloated, but it was like really sore. And that was a cycle for me for the guts of, not keto itself, but having a bad relationship with food was a cycle for me for the guts of maybe like 2-3 years until you started kind of teaching me more stuff. And then when I was learning from you, I was able to kind of carry that into my own coaching and stuff like that. Now, that's not to say that I was going into all my clients being like, here's some keto sticks. We on this every morning. I still knew what to do, but to be honest, I wasn't practicing what I was preaching. I wasn't doing it myself. Like,
I think that's a big thing in fitness though. Like, I think oftentimes trainers or athletes who coach will do things on the extreme end and see how like unsustainable it is at those ends, but they can kind of offer their clientele or their athletes the moderate middle, where like obviously somebody wants to lose weight, let's say, they do need to undergo some form of calorie restriction, no matter what tactic it is, whether it's counting calories or just portion control or whatever, but they probably don't need to cut all the carbohydrates out of their diet necessarily. So I think we live at those extremes as trainers, and I think that kind of is what attracts people to that role. And then I think you would have seen the both physically and mentally the bad places you can go with these things, and then you can navigate people around that. I'm sure you've had clients inquire after, oh, what do you think of that keto diet? You know what I mean?
And looking back in hindsight, I'm like, don't do it, because it's not just going to be the 8 weeks that you do the keto. It's going to have side effects that you'll probably carry through for a lot of your, say the rest of that year. That's not to say that everybody would have the same response that I did, but even though I knew that carbs weren't the devil, because I started off with that in my head, I would always be like, oh, I feel bloated today because I had too many carbs. Not because I'm stressed right now, I ate something that irritated my tummy, I'm due my period. There's so many reasons why you could be bloated. But I was like, oh, it's because I ate carbs. Or you even notice, I don't know if like, no, I do know, a lot of people's moms, like, because I've had conversations with clients and friends and stuff, what happened in the 90s where like carbs were just highlighted as, if you eat these, you're just going to not be happy forever. Like even my mom, it's like carbs are just the devil. And I think through training, and especially over the last 2 or 3 years with powerlifting, my mindset has totally changed towards food, because I see it now as energy for my training. Whereas beforehand, all I was doing was looking at it for how I would look to you. So it was all aesthetic goals I had, and that was wrong for the mindset that I was in. It wasn't until I started to use food for fuel that I'm now in the best shape I've ever been in, because I'm not focusing on how I look. I'm focusing on what my food's going to do for my training and for my health, you know? Yeah,
100%. And I think that is a massive piece of it for many people. They're like legacied into it by their parents. And I only just had like a very brief on Threads, follow Iron Ian on Threads, with another trainer who was posting, he was sitting in the A&E, and there was so many people, he was there, he had like an infection, or he had hurt himself or something, but there was so many like older people around him with like really severe mobility issues. And he was like, if only these people had resistance training. And I was kind of saying to him like, man, like these things didn't exist in the way they do now when these people were 20 and 30 and 40 years old. You know what I mean? Like, so one of the biggest things I think that most younger people now, and I mean anyone like 25 or under, really can't appreciate is that for a very long time, particularly in Ireland, there were no gyms. There was like fitness culture was whatever it said in Cosmo for a lot of women, and for men it was whatever it said in like bodybuilding magazines, you know. And that was only if you had that very niche interest. But in Ireland, particularly, it was if you were getting a bit too chubby, you skipped a few dinners and you went out for a run. That was it. So this is how people get caught in this cycle. And then, as I think particularly for the general public in the 90s and things like that, it was whatever the celebrities were doing. So if the celebrities were doing a lower carbohydrate diet and it was having this outcome, that was what you were meant to do. At what age were you when you did the keto diet?
20. I'm 29 now. And back then, like, Instagram wasn't somewhere that everyone was posting all of their training, and it was like, oh, there's a nice sunset, I'm going to post this with just a sun emoji, and nobody was really putting up
and
stuff
8 filters on it as well.
Yeah, literally.
Saturation all the way up.
Yeah, I didn't even look like myself in real life, proper catfish. I found out about ketosis by Googling diets on the internet. It wasn't because I saw a video of someone doing it. So I think now there's a lot more information available to you. I'd say if you Googled the right things 9 years ago, that information probably still would have been there with like how to balance your nutrition and stuff. But I think it's a lot easier accessible now because you open your phone, click on Instagram, and there's just so much of people training, what they're eating, all that sort of stuff, which is really good for younger people because they hopefully won't do keto diet like I did.
Well, here's a question, right? Let's just say hypothetically, now, in the headspace you are now, do you think you could do a keto diet and be fine?
No.
What do you think would go wrong?
Number one, I don't know if it would actually happen or I'd tell myself, but I would just be like, my training's going to be shit. I also was on 1,200 calories doing the keto diet. So I had no carbs and I was on 1,200 calories. I wouldn't be in a good mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I think eating enough food really has a positive effect on your stress and your mindset day to day, your cognition, all that sort of stuff. If someone said they'd pay me to do it, I wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I just value how I feel every day so much now that it just wouldn't be worth it for me.
So, safe to say you're like, you don't see yourself ever doing the keto diet again?
No. And I remember, I can't talk. I remember I did you ever hear the egg diet?
The egg diet?
The egg diet. So my ma, right?
This already sounds fucking disgusting, whatever it is. Go.
It's like, wake up in the morning, have a boiled egg. 2 p.m, have 2 fried eggs. Evening time, have a handful of berries and 4 boiled eggs. I think I lasted 3 days and then like eggs were like going like that. Yeah. Mad stuff out there.
Where in all this, right, between 20 years old and getting qualified with Image and starting working in Flyefit, did the cheese addiction begin?
I always had a cheese addiction. Cheese is fucking deadly.
Yeah, there was, so everyone listening doesn't know what the fucking talking about. There was a period of time Shauna and I were working together and obviously was still experimenting with some of the lower carb stuff. And she'd be in the canteen gagging on like, what was it, cottage cheese or like quark or something like that.
No, I'm grand.
Oh, rotten, like.
Maybe it came from high fat in the keto diet.
Yeah, well, I'd say so, yeah.
Banging baby bells into me.
Yeah.
They're so nice though.
Yeah, you were a bleeding tank at one stage.
Now that I think about it, I probably would do keto. I'd have to be able to have more cheese.
Yeah, you'd be able to have it. You'd be stinking though. But yeah, like that was, I remembered like when we were starting in Flyefit, the two of us, 2 things that stood out was we would always run out of fucking steam no matter how, because look at all the classes we were doing. You were doing like, what, like 6 spins a week or something like that, and doing it on a lot less carbs than you would have needed for that. So carbohydrates being primary fuel source for people that don't know that. So especially if you have a very high output, fantastic source of energy. But we were both always sick as well when we first started because of the mouldy aircon and Flyefit swords. And you were always eating so much cheese and yogurt. That's what I really remember. So much cheese and yogurt. And I was like, what is wrong with this girl?
Do you know what? Also, I was really bad at meal prep.
Yeah.
So I just literally grab quick things and bring them to work with me. My mindset was all over the place then. And like when I look back, I'm like, I actually don't even know who that person is anymore. Which is so cool. So cool. But it was just a cycle of, no, I'm gonna get on top of everything now, and this week I'm gonna meal prep, and then I'd be in bed and I'd be like, oh, I forgot to meal prep. Oh well, and then I'd fall asleep. So the next day would be me rushing around trying to grab whatever I had in the house and then going to work for the whole day. Maybe some days we're doing 12-hour days, and I'd have like 2 yogurts, probably like, I don't know, a ready meal, and that would get me through the whole entire day. And like at that point, I think a lot of the part to play in that was I was really anxious. And when my brain is really busy, I forget to eat. And then because I forget to eat, later on I binge. So that came after keto. Like I was on a keto diet. From there, then I started eating carbs again, was still in that binge and restrict cycle. Even though I was eating carbs, I'd have a cheat day on a Sunday where I could eat whatever I want and calories didn't exist. It sounds mad to say that out loud. It was like a free day. So I'd go to the shop, I'd buy crisps, I'd get chocolate, I'd get jellies, I would get a takeaway that night. And then the minute the clock strike 12, like fucking Cinderella, you're not allowed to eat that now because calories are going to be counted. Monday'd come and I'd be back into that restrict cycle. And that happened for a long time. A long time. So part of it was I had a bad relationship with food, but the other part was that I actually had a bad relationship with myself more so. I had a lot going on in my head and I couldn't focus on what I actually needed to do to be the best version of myself. And it just took a long time for me to sit down with myself and say, right, Shauna, what's going on here? Like, what is the problem? Because whatever you're trying to do, it's not succeeding. Like, and when I did start to learn a lot more about myself was when everything just became deadly.
What was there like one specific turning point? Is there like an event you can remember that was like a light switch moment, like the bulb going, I've been doing this wrong? Or was it like just a series of events that took place that helped move you into this more like positive perception of not only food, but yourself and what your body can do and things like that? Was there one thing or was it like a series of things?
I think I was getting triggered for a while because I knew I was giving my clients what they should be doing, and it was the correct advice, like make sure you have a balanced diet, obviously fit in things that you enjoy in moderation. Carbs are going to fuel your training, make sure you're getting XYZ in for whatever reason, and I wasn't doing that. So I was going into work fully booked for clients. I was busy all the time. All my clients were getting on great, seeing great progress. They were healthier and happier than they've ever been. They were getting stronger, and then I was going home and doing that binge thing again. And I think I was just getting triggered at myself because I was like, you're supposed to be somebody who's leading these people in the right direction, but you're not taking your own advice. And then COVID kind of happened. I think we'll jump into that whole spiel in a minute. But COVID, I had no choice but to sit down with my own thoughts. And I think that was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me. I think I would still be that person if COVID didn't happen. So I know it was a really bad time for everybody in the world, and life was pretty shy. But if I didn't get forced to sit on my own with my thoughts and analyse everything, I wouldn't have come out the other side so positively, you know? So during COVID, I couldn't go to work like everybody. I was doing an hour training in my back garden off a program that you gave me. And the rest of the day, I was like, what do I do? So I'd go on a walk. I would like journal. I would plan things for the day to make sure I was keeping myself busy. I'd had time to meal prep. And then when I started to be like, oh, this actually works, then I started to stick with it. And I just became obsessed with how great I felt and why didn't I do this any sooner? So yeah, kind of just came from there.
So you obviously identify yourself as somebody that can be quite anxious.
Do you know, this is the first time I've ever sat here and been like, yeah, but not as much as I was before.
Yeah, oh, Jesus Christ, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
You've moved, like, because this is why I'm using this in context, because I remember when we were talking during COVID and you were bleeding, checking your temperature every 20 minutes.
Oh, it was so bad, Ian. I just thought I was going to kill everybody. I genuinely was like, I'm going to kill my whole family. I was reading the news 2-3 times a day.
Yeah.
I checked my temperature. Like, my mom didn't really know how to deal with how out of hand I was getting. That's when, like, so before COVID made me better, it actually made me worse. My anxiety was the worst it's ever been. I was just overthinking so much. I was left on my own with my head, and that was like the worst case for me at the start, but then it became a positive thing. Took my temperature in the morning. I was washing my hands so much. I remember sending you photos. My knuckles were actually bleeding because I was washing my hands so much. Then I was getting fights with my mom because she was like, Shauna, you just wash your hands. You haven't left the house. You don't need to wash them again. And I just get it in my head that like there's a germ on my hand. If I touch this, I'm going to make my mom sick. My mom's going to go to my nana and then my nana's going to die. Like, what the fuck? When I look back at that, I'm like, how did you even get into work? How did you get through the day when there was that much going on in your head? And then from there, when I started to do the journaling and like see things that I'm grateful for, which I don't actually do anymore because I actively do it day to day. I don't need to write it down.
Well, I make you do it in your check-ins.
You make me do it my check-in and I'm like, I'm happy for my friends and my family. I lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
So we're coming through COVID. You obviously had been in this. So this is just one thing I identify in that as you're talking about it, right? I think there's like recognizing that, like, you know, when I was younger or when I was like less mature, I was like this amount of whatever, I had this amount of chaos in my life. And you were talking about how did you get to work with all this going on in your head?
Yeah.
But I think it's that you can only really go up when you've really kind of hit that rock bottom point. Maybe not absolute bottom, but like, you know, I think mentally the most fragile I'd ever spoken to you was during that period of time in COVID. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I do think in its way has been like a really big blessing in disguise because it kind of made you face into the wind a little bit and kind of like have to build up that little bit of mental resilience. And I don't think this is kind of like a thing for anybody that has any, more tendencies towards neuroticism. So like whether it's depression or anxiety or any other negative emotion that just doesn't feel good. It's not to discredit that you're having that experience because you're going to have those experiences, But it's, and maybe unfairly more than most people, but it's to, regardless of that, you do need strategies around it, and you need to learn to navigate the world despite that, because you can't just curl up in a ball and hide.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can, but what type of life is that?
The thoughts that you have aren't the problem. It's how you deal with them. That is the issue. So I wasn't really dealing with them at all. I didn't really know how to deal with them. So they just stayed in my head all the time. I remember one time, actually, it just sparked a core memory. During COVID, I was getting suicidal thoughts again, which I didn't have for years. Like, I would have struggled with depression, and obviously I think I'll always be an anxious person, but I just know how to deal with it now. But during COVID, before I started to come through the horrible part and get better, I was getting those thoughts again, and I was scared. Like, I remember chatting to you and being like, Ian, I can't deal with this crazy that's going on in my head. Like, I just want to switch it off, and I just didn't know how. And it's not that I was going to do anything, because I know that it's just a thought coming in, but having that for the first time in years was very scary. Yeah.
What was like that experience, right? So you are because I think these thoughts kind of start, if I'm understanding it right, somewhat subconsciously. You're not actively thinking about it, but then you'll catch yourself, oh, why am I thinking about that?
Yeah.
You know? So was that like a little bit of a wake-up call?
Yeah, it was like, right, you're in control. You decide what you want to do here. And beforehand, when I had all those thoughts, I was really depressed. But this time around, I wasn't depressed. I was just really anxious and didn't know how to manage it. So I didn't have the sadness that I had before, which led me to doing silly things that I shouldn't have done in hindsight. But I was just sick of feeling that way. And I was like, I don't want to feel like this. I want to look forward to the day. I want to be in control of what I'm doing. I want to do all the things that terrify me, but what is it that's catching me? And that's when I started to be like, oh, you're triggered. And I started to understand what that is. And for a weird period, I actually enjoyed getting triggered. And I know that sounds a bit dark, but it made me think about why I had that feeling. It made me get to the root of, like, why have you got a negative feeling for whatever is happening? And it made me get to the root of how to change that. So in future, if I get triggered, I know why, or don't get triggered over it again, because you know where it's coming from. And it became kind of a weird project for me to work on myself, but it was actually really enjoyable because I was noticing throughout the day when something would bother me. Okay, that feeling is there again. Why is that there? How do you make it go away? Whereas beforehand, the chaos was, oh, you have this feeling. And I was so freaked out by it that I actually didn't know where it was coming from, how to manage it. And in turn, I just panicked all the time. So I started to, I guess I kind of learned to work through it and know why it's there. Because I remember years ago, I'd wake up and I'd be like, to my boyfriend, I'd be like, Tony, I feel mad anxious. And I never knew why. So just wake up with that feeling in your belly. I'd go asleep during the night. I'd wake up to go to the toilet. The feeling is still there. So if your autopilot is that feeling, imagine how scary it would be then when you have to go to a college course, you have to teach a class in front of 20, 30 people at peak time in the biggest gym. You're going through all of these life things when your default isn't calm, your default is panic. So when something that is a little bit nerve-wracking happens, it becomes tenfold. But yeah, it was... I actually liked learning about myself when I started to figure out where those feelings were coming from. And it's something I still carry with myself now. And I think that's a reason why I don't get as anxious. I think I'll always be like,
yeah.
That was perfect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The hands at the same time. But I know how to manage it now. Like doing the podcast, you asked me this, what, even 6-8 months ago?
Yeah.
And I was like,
no.
You know me too well.
What am I going to say? What would I even say?
Yeah, no one's going to listen to me.
Yeah.
But then when you asked me, I was like, yeah, fuck it. I think I've learned if the only reason I have to not do something is because I'm nervous, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
I think I've developed this like mental resilience to myself. Is that good English?
I get what your sentiment is, yeah.
Where I'll try and push myself on the inside, sorry.
You're able to see what the thoughts are going to come, but you know how to navigate it in a logic brain.
Yeah,
you know?
If the excuse isn't good enough, then you have to do the thing. And that's what I do.
I think this is like a thing. It's what most people want in life is on the other side of fear, you know? So a lot of what people, like, big example is people want to be in better shape and better health, and they know they need to go to the gym, but a lot of it's, what if people look at me? What if I don't know what I'm doing?
Yeah.
What if I go in and hurt myself? What if I, like, where is it? How would I get there? Oh, it's going to take so much time. How long do I have to go? What if I'm going in for weeks or months and I don't achieve anything? You know?
But what if it goes deadly?
Exactly.
What if it goes so good? And that's what I've learned is, like, through powerlifting, like, my first competition, I was so scared. I'll never forget my first squat I did. I walked off and my legs were like, you know, cartoon legs, where they're like this. I was like, I don't think I can walk properly. But if I never did that first squat, if I never said yeah to doing the competition, if I never went and did the college course, if I never said yeah to image fitness and did some tutoring, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I think, in essence, I was just holding myself back from everything. Like, that's not good enough. Like, in my head, I'm like, no, you're better than that now. You're not going to grow. You're not going to get better. You're not going to succeed if you just keep staying in your comfort zone, because realistically, in your comfort zone, you're still shitting yourself. So what's the problem then if you shit yourself doing something new? At least you're going to have a few positives that'll come out of it, instead of doing the same thing every day and still feeling anxious, you know?
Do you know when people talk about, like, oh, you know, change happens outside your comfort zone and all that, right? I get, and you see the little diagram of like comfort zone and whatever, right? I think the important thing to remember is that it's good to have a comfort zone. It's good to have a space to retreat to, because whether that's your home or your friends or whatever it might be, it's okay to have a comfort zone, but it's known that nothing happens there. You know what I mean? That's already settled, that's set, that's secure. So you have to venture out to keep the ball rolling and to keep discovering new things. And the reality is, the more things you experience and the more positions you put yourself in, your comfort zone expands. Your life gets richer for it. So it is true. I think it's important to have things that are comfortable and places you can go to when you want to relax, when you want to be just in that nice, calm state. But yeah, you have to get over that barrier of whether it's fear or anxiety or whatever to embrace all the fantastic things you can do with your life. And that's what I want to ask you, right? So I would say now is probably the most stable, happy, and secure you've been in a good long time. Like you've like everyone, we've still got all our ups and downs, but like you've come through an awful lot to get where you are. So if you were, and you, in fairness, with COVID, like that was something that was happening to everyone. Whereas there are a lot of younger people or people that maybe who have been through similar experiences to you that are still kind of in that cycle, whether it's with a poor diet relationship or poor training habits or just dealing with their own turbulent mental state. Obviously, neither of us are doctors, but what advice would you give to that person as somebody who's been there?
If there's something in your gut and you know you want to do it, but you're scared, you just go with your gut. And I know that sounds so cliche, but there's so many things that I turned down because I was scared. And the me without the anxiety and without the mental struggle really wanted to do those things. But it was just my negative thoughts that were pulling me away from it. So try it and see what happens. You might hate it, but at least you tried and you did something new, and you're going to learn something from that, even if you don't enjoy it. And you'll be able to carry that into the next thing.
No, that's good. And I think that's true. It's realistically, the message is what tends to happen with people when they get caught up in this negative thought cycle is they become stagnant or static and they don't take any action. And the problem is that the thing they're experiencing is almost keeping them from doing the things they want. But by not doing anything, they're just staying in that state. So it is, and it's like anything, the first step is always the hardest one. And it's not saying and this is whenever we have these conversations or ever talk to people about these things, it's not to say that it's an easy step, you know, it's that, but it is a necessary step. Like we've had many hard conversations, heart to hearts about you being a fucking spa, you know what I mean? And I definitely think you're the better for it, you know? And like, don't get me wrong, I know for people they're not easy conversations to have. And not everybody has someone that they can have these conversations with.
Yeah, not everybody will tell you what you need to hear. They'll tell you what you want to hear. So I think you were a trigger in a way, but in a good way, because you pushed me. I think you saw the potential that I had more than I could see myself. Even getting into powerlifting, I think you were trying to get me to do a competition for the guts of 2 years.
A long time.
Before I'd actually be like, do you know what? I remember actually during, I think it was the second lockdown, I voice clipped you and I was like, Ian, I'm actually not going to do that comp. And then I voice clipped you straight away then. And I was like, do you know what? No, if I say I'm not doing this again, will you just please eat the head off me? Because I really want to do it and I'm just scared. So I think what I've learned over the years is feelings, right? I'm going to get weird for a minute. So there's like joy and then there's sadness and there's anger and then there's anxiety. Like, why is anxiety up here in your head? That's what I was doing. Like, anxiety had so much power over me when all these other feelings and emotions didn't have that. So I think just learning that it was just a feeling definitely helped. And say today, I've like turned nerves into excitement, when before nerves would be so scary to me that I would actually back out of whatever I was doing because I didn't know how to deal with it. So when you get on an airplane, I don't know if people that are 29 still get excited when they're getting on an airplane, but I do. So the feeling I get when I get on an airplane because I'm going on holidays is the same feeling I get when I'm nervous or something. But the only difference is that there's positive thought and then there's negative thought attached to that feeling. So now I try and tell myself I'm excited for this thing instead of being like, I'm so scared this is going to go so bad. I just don't tell myself all of those awful things and try and embrace that it could go really well. Yeah.
No, I think that's a really profound thing to say, because like that, anxiety is a normal experience for humans to go through. And I think that when people have chronic anxiety, it can become this really overwhelming experience. You know, you're constantly in this heightened state of like fight or flight, basically.
Yeah.
And I think the tricky thing, it's one of the things I think that's difficult about the discussions around mental health. And great. It's great that it's more visible and people are more comfortable talking about it. But I think it's one of these things that people then start to interpret the feeling of anxiety at any point as negative.
Yeah.
Like if you're going into a job interview, it's totally normal to be anxious. That's normal. So you shouldn't become overwhelmed by that feeling of anxiety. But yeah, if you're waking up to go for a tinkle in the middle of the night, you probably shouldn't be bloody anxious about that, like, you know? But so I think there's a difference between understanding chronic and acute anxiety. Same with like, if somebody was like overjoyed all the time, I'd be like, what drugs are you on? You know what I mean? So it's the same thing. I think the majority of people's lives, you're probably spent somewhere just in the middle where you're just, everything's fine. Like you're not overjoyed, you're not extremely sad, you're just coasting nice and easy. And I think that's what it is to be somebody like who is not extremely neurotic, whereas neurotic tends to be these crazy highs and lows for people, more so lows, and that's the tricky thing. But let me ask you a little bit, because you touched on it earlier on. You have had experiences with the mental health services in Ireland. If you're happy enough to talk a little bit about it from when you were a bit younger. And then I know that kind of like, some of that is obviously still quite close to your heart. Some of it you're still quite supportive of with Pieta House and things like that. So walk me all the way back. And don't worry, at some stage for everybody, listen, we are going to talk a bit about powerlifting, all right? But I want to talk a bit more about your experiences, because this is the point. You have the very unique perspective of having lived the life you've lived. You know, no one else has walked a mile in your shoes. No one else has come through what you've come through. No one else has experienced what you've experienced. Half the fuckers listening to this have done a deadlift. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So only you can tell me about these experiences. So tell me, we're going way, way back to when you were little Shauna or smaller Shauna. What was going on?
So when I was 15, my granddad died. That was the first experience of loss that I ever had. And I didn't really process what was happening until maybe 2 years later. I think I've always naturally been like an anxious person and an overthinker, and I would have naturally panicked all the time. But I think that was kind of the trigger for me that accumulated into me being in this negative cycle of thinking. He would have been like a father figure for me, because it was just me and mum and my brother growing up. And then coming into like when I was in like 5th year, I think, the thoughts they were just getting so overpowering. Like every day was just like, what's the point of this? Like I was pulling myself away from people, for one. I was going to school, I was coming straight home and then going to my room. And then obviously I think I was having like grief issues going on there as well. So like I was just trying to process, he's not here anymore. This is where he is. How do I get closer to him? And I'm getting super dark now, but I'm just telling you the truth of what I was experiencing. So that was in my head. And then like my grades started going down, and he would have always been really encouraging me doing well in school. So then it started turning into a pattern of like, oh, your grades aren't even going well. I was pulling myself away from my friends, but in my head, my friends didn't like me anymore. You know, I was a teenager at the time. And it just got into this negative cycle of like, what's the point? Nothing was giving me joy anymore. I just started getting really dark thoughts. And then I was like, how do I switch these off? And it just got to the point where I didn't know how to control the thoughts that were going into my head. And I just thought this would be easier on everybody. Like, I wouldn't be a burden on people. I've never talked about this out loud, so I might cry. I've never lost my thought process there. Sorry. So basically what I was saying was I never knew that I was going through these things in the moment. So all I could think of was, how do I turn this off? How do I make all these thoughts to go away? And one thing led to another. I took an overdose. I took 52 paracetamol.
Why 52?
Because I count everything. Defo an underlying OCD going on there. Like, so yeah, I took an overdose. I ended up in the hospital. I had acute liver failure. And that was kind of the start of it. There was a lot more after that. So I think that was it coming to the surface, but there was a lot more understanding as to what was going on then after that. So that happened, was in hospital for a while, realised that it was a spur of the moment. And I think that's something that you don't realise until, well, how can I explain? Like, if somebody passed away and they were in that thought process, that's all they know. But I've had the experience of it not succeeding. And I didn't want that. I didn't not want to be here anymore. I love everybody. I love all my friends. I love all my family. I'm only young. I have my whole life ahead of me. But the thoughts were so awful that that's the only out I could find. And from there, then I got out of hospital straight away. I got put into, I was with a psychiatrist, sorry. They signed me up with Pieta House and I started going there twice a week. And I think from there, then I started to realise, actually, I'm not okay. So in the moment, I didn't even know I was depressed. Nobody was talking about it back then. I think there's a lot more focus on mental health nowadays. And obviously the power of social media, there's a lot more stuff that's on your phone. So I had never heard of anyone else going through this sort of thing. I was embarrassed by it. We used to go to psychiatry, me and Mum, every week, and she would pretend that she was going to the doctor for me, so that in case any of my friends came in, they wouldn't know where I was going. But I went to Pieta House twice a week, and they were amazing. They were so supportive. I was there for maybe 2 or 3 years on and off. I remember at one point I stopped going, and I ended up going back maybe 6 months later and stayed with him for another year or two. At this point, I would have been like 19 to 21, I'd say. So started when I was 16 and it lasted for 4 or 5 years of me trying to deal with all of these thoughts and stuff, you know. So yeah, that was mad. I can't believe I didn't cry. I'm fucking buzzing.
I'm shocked as well.
I'm so happy.
But no, like, thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure there, like, thinking about like the age you were and how young you were, and there's already 1,000,001 different things going on in a young teenager's life, and whether that's like, you know, social pressures from friends and what you think you need to achieve in society, or how you look, you know, do you have the new cool hairdo, you know what I mean, whatever, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
And then down to like even like things like school and pressure there, and then obviously the turbulent emotions and hormones that are constantly changing in your body as your body go through these rapid changes. I can only imagine then what it was like to lose somebody like your granddad. And I know from previous conversations, I think he represented a massive amount of stability in your life and in your family. So obviously to lose somebody that was like that prominent a figure for everyone, I'd imagine was very tough.
Yeah, he was always the one that pushed me to be the best that I could be. Like, I remember when I was super young, he used to like write down maths questions for me, and I'd go into the other room and I'd do them, so I wasn't allowed to ask for hints, and then I'd come back and he'd correct them. Sorry, I'm just getting core memories here. It's fun, like.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things, like, that's a demonstration of love, because somebody cares enough about you to entertain you that way, you know what I mean? Or spend that time with you.
So it was like the person who always encouraged you to do the best that you could be was gone. And that's not to say everyone in my family wasn't also really supportive, but when I think of my granddad, I just always think that he wanted me to be the best that I could be. And I think that pressure on me as well, like while I was going through those thoughts, was making everything worse, because then I started telling myself like, oh, everyone would be so disappointed. Like, your grades are going down. You're not yourself. You're not doing this. So I just started to think that I would be doing everyone a favour, which is crazy saying it out loud. I would be doing everyone a favour and wouldn't be burdening them with my shit if I wasn't here anymore. And seeing that not succeed and how sad everyone was a real eye-opener to the love that you have around you and how much everybody appreciates you being here. So if there is anyone listening, you never know. You really never know who might be going through these thoughts. If there is anybody listening and you might feel that there isn't a reason to be here, trust me, there is. There is. Everybody around you appreciates that you're here, and it's so much better that you're not gone.
Yeah. No, agree. And like, shout out to your ma, shout out Anita for like faking it. She was going into the doctor and all for you so you could go in for your appointments. You know?
Like, I'm just going into the doctor.
Yeah, you know, but that's what I mean. Like, it's you would be shocked what people are willing to do to look after you if they know that you need it. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's one thing I think we're both very lucky with now with our like,
you soon.
Yeah, with our friend group is that like even most recently, I came back from Prague over Christmas. And our plane kept getting delayed. We were delayed like 4 or 5 hours. And Evan Wallace drove up to the airport at 2:30 in the morning to pick us up. Do you know what I mean? Just because he's a G,
He's
you know?
such a gem, isn't he?
But that's what I'm saying. And we're lucky to have people like that around us. Or when I got my laser eye surgery, the lads just were picking me up and bringing me back and forth from my appointments in town so I could get my... Because remember, I couldn't see shit because I had the scar on my cornea. And or like Dave drove into town to get drops off them for me and all, like, you know? So... You know, it's great when you are really stuck. If you've got that peer group around you or that family or whoever it might be, they will take care of you, and it's great to see. But like, I can understand. You know, obviously, like, you know, I'm not going to get into my shit, but like, we've had a couple of losses over the last couple of months, and it's one of those things. There was an expression I heard recently, and I think it kind of sums it up. Is that like, you only really know how much weight somebody's taken off you when they're gone. You know, and I think maybe losing your granddad at such a younger age, and when he was that big personality in your life, or that like a representation of, like, you know, the father figure in your life, to lose someone like that so young is obviously very, very tricky and a tough thing to navigate. But look, you've come through an awful lot of hardship in your younger years, and I think like, as much as like these conversations are hard to have, not only, I think there are probably people who are listening who can empathize, who are going through or have gone through something similar, and it's that expression that you can never really know what type of battles people have come through or what they're dealing with until you have walked a mile in their shoes. So maybe just being transparent with this will not only give people more insight into you, and, you know, and I think everybody that like trains, you know, like, loves having you around because you're so annoyingly positive at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday.
How are you still my friend?
Oh, it's brutal. Like, you're so chirpy, and it's so early and cold.
This is
and
probably everyone's probably going to be like, here, what did he do to her on that podcast? Like, she's so calm. She's crying and all.
But yeah, I think so. To see that you've come through that and still be like the little ray of sunshine that you can be for everybody, and everybody loves having you around. But then also people that are in that same place or maybe are coming through something similar, to hear that, you know, there is that light at the end of the tunnel. I don't think these conversations can be had enough, because you never know who you're going to relate to. I say this to everyone when it comes to like coaching, even to make it like really two-dimensional again. You could hear the same cue 10 times and it doesn't make sense. And just on the 11th time, it was said to you in just the right sequence of words at just the right time, and it just clicked. And it could be the same with these things. You know, you've just said the right sequence of words or told your story in such a way that it makes sense to somebody, and it might be the catalyst they need to start making proactive change, whether that's getting up and going to the gym, whether that's working with a coach, whether it's taking some control over the way they eat, or, you know, making sure they socialize with their friends, or maybe it could be going out and getting a job or getting back into education, or it could be seeking the mental health services. It could be any one of these things, and they would all be positive steps in the right direction. And you mentioned earlier on jokingly, we were talking about Jordan Peterson, right? And I know I've talked to Dan on his podcast a good bit about like the role of masculinity in the modern world, and we talked about people like Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. And I know people have like really strong opinions about these people, but I'm a big fan of something Jordan Peterson says, and he says, aim up. Right now, you can aim low. It doesn't have to be a big goal, but just always aim to be a little bit better. And that's like the meme about like make your bed and clean your room. It's like, yeah, fair enough. That's not going to change your life. If you're fucking depressed, you're not going to feel amazing after cleaning your room.
But it's one thing that you do now that you didn't do before.
Bingo.
Bingo.
And it's a catalyst to make other changes later on down the road. And that seemingly is what you did. You made small incremental changes across a very long period of time, probably over a decade.
Yeah.
That have led you to be able to be in the position you're at now, where, you know, you run your very successful personal training career. You're one of the most experienced and favored trainers within the sphere of Flyefit. You know, you're a very competent, capable, and highly accomplished powerlifter. And you occasionally go up to the upstairs in Flyefit and blast a few tunes out, sing a few bars.
Get a few likes.
Get a few likes on Instagram. You absolute snake. Just to get the DMs. Oh my gosh, Shauna, you're so fab. Yeah. I know how it is. So tell me then, we spin things back around to more modern times. You have decided to throw yourself 2 feet into the world of powerlifting. Now, I've had dozens of powerlifters on here now since I've started this podcast, but I think your entry into the sport was kind of unique because I think there's a cohort of yourself and some of the others that essentially just kind of followed me into it, right? And I think actually, do you know what? I meant to say this to you. I think you're the first person I've had on that I'm coaching. Like, I've had James on, but I wasn't coaching James.
I was listening last night because obviously doing a bit of research, seeing what questions you'd be asking. Wouldn't be like me to overthink. And you were saying, oh, well, Shane is your coach. And in my head, I was like, whoa, that was that long ago?
Yeah, it was ages ago, yeah.
Mad.
Yeah, he was only teeny tiny as well. Now he's an absolute unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's gone huge. 20 kilos on his bench press in 5 months, just so you know. Coaching link on Instagram at Iron Ian PT. If you want 20 kilos on your bench press. In any case, so we can obviously offer the unique perspective of the coach-athlete relationship. We start working together, I think, only really properly during COVID, am I right?
During COVID, I wanted to train, but I had nothing to do. And you sent me, I think it was like a 4-day full body program. I bought a barbell and a shitty rack.
I remember, yeah.
And 2 sets of dumbbells and I think like 100 kilo worth of plates. And it was so good just to still be able to train. But I knew that you were like, she's going to end up doing powerlifting. It's just a matter of time before I had to answer the question of you asking.
Reeling you in.
Yeah. So that got me into the habit of doing something every day, even if I didn't want to do it. So many videos of people like training in the rain during COVID. So that was me because I knew you were going to be like, how did your sessions go this week? And if I didn't do them, I'd just be like scared for myself. I just bailed. So that got me consistent with training. And then when the gyms reopened again, I think I went to Image Fitness to do tutoring and PT full time. And I was actually running a powerlifting program around that time because I think we were preparing for a competition. And then I bailed, the August one. Because I was too busy making my hands bleed. I was terrified of germs.
Yeah, you were I remember you were signed up. It was either Ab Series 5 or 6.
So we were meant to do the April.
Yeah.
And we went into lockdown like 2 weeks or a week before. I think I was on like my second last or my last session in the old abs.
Yeah.
And then we went into lockdown and it didn't go ahead. Then the next one happened and you were like, Shauna, there's a competition there. And that was around the time where I wasn't doing good and I didn't want to be out in public where I could be catching those germs. Yeah. So I bailed. And then it was the following April. It was exactly a year after I should have done a competition that I did number 1.
That would have been Ab Series 6, I think.
I haven't a clue.
Yeah, I think so.
So bad at the numbers.
Yeah, I believe so. I think that was actually one of my best comps today. I put up a 750 total in reps. I think that was my best comp to date until the most recent Christmas qualifier one.
So just around the time that you took me on as a client.
Yeah, I don't think that's why though. I think despite that, I still had a good meet. But so I encourage everyone to do this, especially if they're an adult and they don't have like some kind of physical outlet. And I don't care if it's playing darts or shooting pool with the lads every week or playing a bit of golf or whatever, or going to the driving range or anything. But I think everyone should have some kind of physical outlet, and people that I think are like not really naturally athletically gifted can do well in powerlifting. And that's not to say you or anyone. I'm just saying typically that's why I encourage like just try it, because the barrier to participation is so low. I knew you were going to smile if I went participation, right? The barrier to participation is so low that everyone can do it, but you can make really great progress in it, both in pure strength, having a goal to work towards, but also, and this is like I think really stepped on, you can get in phenomenal shape doing powerlifting training, particularly if I'm programming you. So,
and you follow the program.
And well, yeah, I mean that is kind of one of the caveats that like the likes of Jacob and I don't like to follow. But so you came in and you in good faith you did your first competition. So talk me through some of your experiences in your first like 1 to 2 competitions, other than the cartoon legs.
Was absolutely terrified. But I was so excited. I think once I started to see beforehand, because I wasn't following the program, I was kind of training on my own and stuff here and there. And then I started to be preparing for this comp, and then we all started training together. Yous were already training together, and having the people around you to kind of be buzzing with you during like training and stuff definitely helped me to get onto the platform. And then I think anyone who has ever done a competition will know how terrifying your first ever squat at your first ever competition is. But once you get the first one out of the way, the rest of the day was so fun. I was on a high. I remember the next day after the comp waking up and being like, I can't believe that I did that. And that might sound silly to some people, but for me, getting on a platform in front of a load of people was huge. I was like, I can't believe I actually did that, because I was so scared of it for so long. So first 2 comps, I didn't really remember. Like, do you know, actually until like the 4th or 5th competition, I never saw the refs because I was so dazed by what I had to do that I never saw them. And after I kind of got used to it, then now it's just become something that's really, really fun.
Let me ask you then, right? So, do you know, actually, I'll tell you this. There's a couple of people that I coach are like, oh, isn't Shauna fabulous? She's so strong. Oh, she's so talented.
I get so scared.
And I'm like, no, she's fucking not talented. She was shy, right? And she put in the work. Not you weren't shy, but you know what I mean. I don't like people writing off hard work on talent.
Yeah.
You know? Like, don't get me wrong. If you're a hard worker and talented, that's fantastic. But like, if you go onto your openpowerlifting.org and you type in Shauna Rahaman, you can see you've done what, like 9 competitions so far, something like that, 8 or 9.
I thought it was 7, but you're usually right and I'm wrong, so probably is 8 or 9.
Well, it was somewhere between 7, 8, 9. In any case, you can see if we look at total or dots or whatever metric you want to use, as time has gone on, you've incrementally gotten better slowly but surely. So you didn't start out as this, 400 dots, 400 plus kilo total lifter. You slowly worked your way up through the ranks. And I think that's the biggest thing about anything that's worth doing. It's persistence. Like, get into it, see if you enjoy it, dip the toe. That's why I say everyone do one meet, see if you like it. And if you don't, no harm done. If you bought an SBD belt, somebody will buy it off you. You know what I mean? Don't worry. Like, you didn't lose all that money on all that kit. And that's actually just incidentally, I'll say this out loud on this fucking podcast. People say powerlifting is an expensive sport to get into. And at one stage I used to agree until I started hanging around with a couple of lads that play golf. That's an expensive sport to get into. Holy shit. Powerlifting's not an expensive sport. In any case, so if you dip like you did, you tried it, you liked it, you get the residual benefits if you train with a crew, everyone works together, and you've always got this thing to work towards. There's always going to be another competition, another opportunity to lift, another test of your abilities. And not every competition goes great. Like the couple, you nearly collapsed that when we were at 40 degree weather during AB Series 11 or 10. So yeah, there's been it's always the ups and downs, but it's the ever growing adherence to the sport. Adherence to the sport means it's an ever growing like feedback loop of, you can now just go in any day of the week and have a training plan and train. Your base, like you can go in and rep out 120 kilo deadlifts, whether it's conventional or sumo, any day of the week. You can squat 120 kilos any day of the week. You can bench 70 kilos any day of the week. That's a really great base level of strength. You know what I mean? And then obviously we can take you through a whole process to get you as strong as possible. Or like we've done, like or we're doing in your current block, we can focus more on other ends, like your condition, your general fitness. You know what I mean? So good luck with that 21:59.
I'm actually so excited. Yeah. So excited. Remember, I used to be obsessed with conditioning.
Conditioning's great though.
Yeah, but remember I was like doing 5 spins on the bike and then going and doing conditioning, and then I'd be like not touching any barbells.
I just remember how red your eyes always are after the spin from the sweat getting in your eyes.
Yeah, that's because I've no eyebrows.
Well, fair, yeah. They don't look as bad as they used to, in fairness. So people are going to be waiting for the YouTube to go, I've got to get a look at her eyebrows.
No.
Tell me though, what has been your favourite competition?
Did you hear that noise?
Yeah, it was like a frog.
I think I have a burp.
Don't worry. You can let it out just off the mic.
No, I don't think it's going to come now.
That's fine.
I think my last competition was my favourite.
Christmas qualifier?
Yeah, and that's not because of the total I got or like I'm the strongest I've been or anything like that. I think it was so much fun.
It was good.
And it was just really nice to not be the way I used to be and actually go out and do something that other people might look at me going, that's mad that she does that. But I was just having so much fun the whole time. Like that was the first competition that Anto went to.
I was going to say, yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, I wouldn't let Anto, my boyfriend, go to any competition for fear that I would totally mess it up because he was going to be in the crowd. Or my mum.
Or your brother.
Or anybody who isn't in the usual training circle. And the last competition, he was there. And I remember before my first squat, I was like, Ian, I'm after saying Anto, he's in the crowd. And you were like, it's fine, you're going to do a great job. And then I went out and yeah, I can never be afraid of that again because I squatted 170 in sleeves.
Yeah, easy.
And he was there. And now I'm not afraid of that anymore. So next time maybe I'll let me ma go.
No, like I think the nice thing about that competition was for like us, for the coach and the athlete, is we didn't have any crazy expectations because we had only just done What had we? We had only just done a meet.
The August.
The IPF Pro-Am.
IPF, yeah.
And we weren't going to do this, but then you got invited. And we had that conversation. I was like, look, you've been invited to do this meet. That doesn't happen that often. It's a national level meet. Why not? Let's just prep for it. And we weren't going in with any crazy expectations. But I think because of that, the prep was quite chilled. We had you go up a weight class for the Irish PF, so you didn't have to worry too much about dieting or anything like that because we had just been in the middle of a cut.
Yeah.
So I think you came in light enough for the weight class.
It was 72.4
for the under 76. So you like quite a bit of room there. And then nice squat PB, a nice bench PB.
Bench PB.
And we won't talk about the deadlift.
Oh, my poor deadlift, Ian.
You were like a bleeding question mark.
Halfback Rahaman shall always return on comp day.
But it's quite funny because like incidentally, I think we had exactly the same competition because I got a squat PB. I got a bench. It wasn't like a PB in the sense of like I've benched that before, but it had been a couple of years and I did it at a much heavier body weight. And this was the first time doing it in the Irish PF. So it was 170. I got it on the bench. First time I got it was 2021. Got it again in 2023. That was nice at about 5 kilos lighter. And then we both missed our last deadlift.
That was a solid comp for you considering like you could smell your leg from the airport.
My dusty knee.
Tiger balm.
Yeah. Yeah, well, from the airport. Yeah, no, it was quite so. It actually, it's still not fantastic, but it's not as bad as it was then. That was it's so touch and go because like sometimes I'm walking around, it's fine, and then I'll like step up a step and I'm like, ugh, you know. So, don't know, maybe at some stage I'll get it looked at, but maybe not because
maybe we're just getting old.
Nah, fuck that. No, I'm better than I've ever been. But so your last comp was your most chilled out, most relaxed, and one of your favorites, and I think. There's obviously the cathartic experience of you've gotten to a place that you were so comfortable with what you were doing that you were okay having people in the audience to come and watch.
Yeah, and I think like joining ABS last December.
Yeah.
Not the one gone, the one before.
That's right.
I'm so used to like so many friendly faces in the crowd now. Whereas when I did the first few comps, I didn't really know that many people. So it was like you're going and doing this new thing in front of all these people you don't know. And I think anyone as well that does powerlifting will know how welcoming the community is. Like everyone is just so supportive and you have to crack with them and you really get to know them as well. Like the girls on a Sunday would be some of my good friends now. So it just made the whole day a lot more enjoyable knowing that other people who I knew were going for PBs and they were competing as well. You have so much fun in the warm-up room and can like buzz off each other. So it just made the whole day really enjoable, yeah.
I used to get plagged every time we do a comp. When is Shauna joining ABS? By everyone.
Really?
Like, from Jay to Emma McDermott to everybody. Like, right, so you obviously have a very positive opinion of powerlifting. Would you recommend it to people? Like if you're working in Flyefit and somebody's like, I'm really enjoying strength training. Is this something you would encourage people to do?
Do it.
Yeah.
And don't wait until you're strong enough. That's what I did. And I don't know why I was waiting so long. The only reason I can think is because I was actually scared deep down. Because you're going to get stronger anyway. Whether you sign up to do a comp, you'll probably actually get more strong than if you're floating in with your headphones on and just following a program off the internet. Like get a coach and actually do it properly. The only regret I have is not going and doing it sooner or joining ABS sooner as well. Because being surrounded with people who know more than you, who can encourage you and give you all the tips, and then also just having the same mindset as you as well can be so much better than training on your own. Like I don't think I'd still be doing powerlifting if it was something that you do on your own.
Yes,
most of the reason why I still like do it is because training isn't a chore. It's so much fun.
You get to go spend time with your friends.
Yeah, it's great crack.
Like for like 3 hours talking absolute pony.
Shy.
Do you know it's funny for me because if like I get a check-in from Evan Wallace, he just sent me one the other day of him doing his overhead tricep extensions and you're there busting a move beside him and then Keane Short runs through like a horse on that on the easy bar thing. So God help the people in Integrity Fitness and Swords.
Sometimes I'd be conscious of that, like if people are intimidated by so many people, they're making really loud noise and all. I'm like, sorry, come on over, we're sound.
Yeah, we're just being spastic, so there's no harm in it. But so do you think then, now I know I don't just want to say powerlifting, but I think everything that it's encompassed, having something to train towards, a very definitive training goal and outcome, but something that's pliable. So, we're training to be better at squat, bench and deadlift, but like you've gotten really good at chin-ups, you've gotten really good at dips, you've gotten quite fit. We've done a whole load of other things. As you said, you're in the best shape of your life you've ever been. So there's all these other residual things we can do with the training, but we do always have this long-term outcome goal to get better at our next competition. But I think there's the unspoken things, the things that maybe aren't reflective of everyone's powerlifting experience. Like we're very lucky that we have a great core group of people that always train together. We've got Vinnie Chung, we've got James McLaughlin, we've got like a load of the boys that come in and like Evan Dolan dips in, Evan Wallace dips in. Like, geez, I'm probably forgetting people, but there's always like a bit of a crew around. Mario comes down to train now again. People jump in and out all the time, but we always have people around us, whether we need a spot, whether we need to have a bit of crack. So even when you're going through those periods of low motivation, you'll still always turn up because the crew is going. So I'd imagine that has been both a fantastic addition to your life, not only from a training side, but also from a personal side.
Yeah, keeping myself consistent. Like, again, back to the whole thought process of if my only reason is because I'm tired or because I don't want to do it, it's not good enough. So when you know other people are going to be there, it's just going to make it so much easier. How many times have you gone to the gym and walked out being like, I shouldn't have trained? It's getting into the building that's the hardest part. And once you're there, usually it's not going to be as bad as you made it out to be in your head. And it's usually those days, I don't know if everyone's like me, but it's the days I think are going to be shite that end up being days where I'll get really good lifts. I'll probably hit PBs and stuff. But having a support system around you and people who kind of understand why you do what you do definitely makes it a lot easier. Not that it's hard.
Well, I think it teaches people as well to be in something like this. It's that delayed gratification. You're going to put in the sets, the reps, you're going to work up to your top set, you're going to do your back offs, you're going to do your cardio, you're going to do your core work, you're going to do all these different things, you're going to adhere to the diet so you can show all the skills you've developed on this one day. So you're ticking a box consistently day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, to demonstrate it all on this one event. That's 9 lifts. You've 9 minutes at most. And it is that thing of like, sure, it's an outcome goal to hit like a bigger total or more dots or whatever, get a couple of personal bests, but it makes you that more process orientated. And it sounds like with everything you've come through, that was kind of what you did. You didn't focus on when am I going to feel XYZ or feel better. I'm just going to, I'm going to get up, I'm going to make my bed, I'll go for my walk, I'll do my journaling, you know what I mean? I'll put my Earth Stone in my sports bra. Oh, I could not mention the crystals.
I was going to say it earlier.
You go through your little process each day. And James, incidentally, when I had James McLaughlin on, he spoke about the same things. He just developed a routine, and that's what helped him come out the other side. And I know, actually, just to touch on it, you and James are actually like best pals because of a lot of mutually shared experiences. Like, what helped you and James become good friends? Or what was that? What
First of all, powerlifting, because Hassan, we worked together in Image Fitness, and his friend, who is Luke, was opening a gym during COVID, and we went around and trained there one day, and James was there, and I think he was prepping for his first powerlifting competition. And me and Hassan always trained together, but he did mad shit, like a single arm overhead Bulgarian split squat with a 3 tempo on the way down, and I'd be over here doing deadlifts, and I'd always be trying to get him to do the same thing as me. And then Jimmy was like, oh, I'm doing my first powerlifting comp. And then we started chatting and stuff like that. So whenever I'd go into Integrity, we'd all just end up chatting and kind of getting to know each other and stuff. And then he would have asked me for a spot. And along the course of that, we would have obviously talked shite, because anyone that knows me, I literally can't stop talking. And along the way, we just ended up getting onto different topics and started to realise, oh, I went through that. Oh, that happened to me. And it wasn't just agreeing for the sake of it. It was like we've a very similar past. And especially how our thought process would have been back then versus where we are now. So we kind of just bonded on the fact that the two of us were through very, very similar experiences. And then you also know that, like, when you're having those mad thoughts, like not mad thoughts as in dark shit that I was talking about earlier, but stuff that you keep in your head, or I don't say to you because you're just going to be like, Shauna, Jimmy probably have those thoughts as well. Yeah. So if I'm having this mad thought in my head, I'll just message Jimmy now and I'll be like, here, do you ever realise that? Blah, 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 blah. And he'll be like, oh my God, yeah.
So when I'm going to set a scene for everybody listening. When we all train together, right? So James, now I'm coaching James for, how long am I coaching James? Not that long, since June, I think. And he's made phenomenal progress, put on a good amount of muscle, and you can see his whole demeanour has changed. He carries himself a lot more confidently. He's become a much better coach because, God help him, he's also moved in with me. So he'd be sitting down at the kitchen table at 10 o'clock trying to have his dinner so he can go to bed to get up for his half six client, and I can go, this is what you need to do to fix your life and fix your training and your career and everything. And the lad's just trying to eat his chicken and rice, you know? But
still judging that meal, by the way.
Oh, manky. Well, I'm not even going to talk about it on here. But in any case, so James and I, we've trained together a good bit, just me and him, and we've got a good rapport. We're good pals. But it's that joke of like James is becoming like a little Ian, right?
Yeah.
But once in a while, I'll catch him over talking to you, and the two of you are doing something so stupid together. And I can like, those two fuckers, they're on the same wavelength. You know what I mean?
Sure. Only 2 or 3 days ago, I was talking shite with him on Instagram, and we were saying how funny it is that like he's friends with you, but he's friends with me. So you keep him like focused and everything, and then whenever he's feeling a bit soft and a bit like, oh, I feel shit today, he's like, hey Shauna, I feel shit today. So there's certain things we tell each other.
I like how we're throwing him under the bus.
We
here,
really are, but we wouldn't tell you. Then you walk in the gym and he's like, hey man, what's up?
No, but like I think that's a great thing to have in a friend dynamic. You know what I mean? Because naturally you're going to have people you want to lean on for different things, but I think it's great that like I like the fact that you and him get on so well. I like the fact that all three of us can get on so well, and it's very much a bit of comic relief then in training as well. See how giddy he was getting about his bench on Tuesday. Was that Tuesday?
Yeah, that was good, Tuesday.
Yeah. But and that's one of the things I know for myself. It's something that like I remind. There's a couple of things that like I think we can take for, like, right, I got my eyes lasered in 2022. I can see without glasses. I remind myself of that every day, that like I'm so grateful to have been in a position where I could pay for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And because it was something that like meant a lot to me to get done. And I try to remind myself now not to take like the fact that I can see stuff for granted. And it's the same whenever we go train. And I've been in training in the midst of a really deep deficit to make weight for an international competition where I hated every one is.
Where is this going?
But I'm saying that in the big picture, I was also always grateful that I have a group of people around me, because like I don't like training by myself. I like having a training partner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. It might mean that at some point in the train, I might want to go off and do my accessories by myself. But like, I like having people to help spot for me. I like that I can see a lot of my lifters in person all the time, and we can shoot the shit. Like after this, we're going to go deadlift.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? As much as I want to throttle you all so often, I'm also really grateful that like I have yous all around me, because you're actually a good crew.
Sorry, I thought the reason I said where's this going was because I thought you were going to comment on like a time where I'm like this with me hood over me head or something. You were in the pits of a calorie deficit, being like, I'm actually going to kill her. Like,
oh, when you were doing the
hood over, I think
and it's just your little face. Yeah. No. No, that was in fairness, that was nobody's fault. I had to eat like 2,100 calories to make weight for Western Euros, because I'd gotten so fat between nationals and summer.
Oh yeah.
Because I'd gone on like 2 holidays. I was in Italy and I ate like 6 pizzas in 4 days.
But you still did it.
I did.
Yeah.
I didn't have a good meat, but I still did it.
The box was ticked. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
12 kilos in just under 9 weeks.
Did you do keto?
I did not. I swear to God, no one has ever walked the roads of swords like I did during that. Maybe Stephen Tierney, but nobody else would do it the way I did.
Oh yeah, remember you kept voice clipping me going, guess what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Every day.
Taking steps, doing my steps. Yeah, no, it was good. But I'm glad I had that experience. And unlike your experiences with keto, I didn't do it because it was something I thought this was the answer. It's like, this was, it had a very particular outcome that had to be achieved, and this was the best way to do it. And shout out to Shane Story, who helped me through that whole process to do that. So I'm not going to keep you here for much longer. If you were talking to your younger self now, even only as far back as COVID, or even if you were thinking about yourself the first couple of times you stepped into the gym, or you were training in the gym already, any one of these versions of yourself, and you're like, maybe I will give that powerlifting thing a try. What advice would you give to these each individual pieces of yourself along the way? So if I think back to Shauna during COVID, anxiety's at its highest, everything's out of control. What would you say to yourself then?
What would I say to her when she's panicking or thinking about going and doing powerlifting?
When she's panicking.
First of all, it's fine, because it feels like it's not. Second of all, just take a minute and just sit down and be like, what is wrong here? This is what I do now. This is why I don't have panic attacks anymore. I find what it could be that's bothering me. So I kind of do like a life scan. I'm like, right, how's work? Everything's fine. Do you get all your stuff done for clients? Yeah, everything's fine. How's your family? Like, I literally just do a full life scan of everything that could possibly be making me anxious. And usually I'll find what it is, because it's never there for no reason. And when you find what it is, what can you do about it? And when you've put together a plan of what you can do about it, 10 out of 10 times, it has made me feel better. So I think looking back to her when she's like freaking out and thinking everything is chaos, just giving her advice that, look, if you just take a minute and try and first of all breathe. My brother taught me to breathe. Like, the amount of times I've gone to my brother and I've been like, and he taught me the best thing ever. He'd just look me dead in the eye and he'd be like, I'm not talking to you until you breathe. And it's the best advice I've ever gotten. Just slow yourself down, find what the problem is, and then what can you do to change it? And once you find something that you can do about it, you are going to make that ease and it will feel better.
Very profound. That's a good piece of advice. So another one, we're going to wind it back a bit further, right? You had just joined the gym, hadn't a breeze what you were doing. You're doing your good girls, bad girls, walking on the treadmill, wherever it might be. Think of the people that are in that position. What would your advice be to like a younger version of Shauna just starting in the gym, or somebody who is just starting? Think about, they walk into Flyefit for the first time. It's 30,000 square foot now, however big it is. There's dozens of people coming in and out, incredibly overwhelmed. What's your advice to those people?
The first thing I always tell clients that feel that way is that everybody who looks like what they're doing has felt what you're currently feeling. So even though you're terrified and you don't know what to use, nobody walked into the gym one day and knew what to do. They all had to learn. So number one is we all were there before, so you're not on your own. If you're so nervous that you're going to leave, I would advise even doing like 20 minutes on the bike. And I wouldn't be someone who would be like, just do cardio, as you know, and lift weights all the time. But if you go into the gym and you do something the first day and then you leave, you've done the gym. You've went in, you've ticked the box, and then you can build on that. If you're young and you can't afford to get a coach, there's a lot of reputable coaches online that have a lot of advice on their page, whether it's to do with nutrition, lifestyle habits, all of that sort of stuff. You will get good sources of information online. But a lot of gyms do like free gym intros. So Flyefit would do a free gym intro where for 30 minutes a coach will go around the gym with you. As you know, we all had to do them. And they'll show you where everything is in the gym, how to use the machines, all of that sort of stuff. And then at least that's a stepping stone for you being able to actually do resistance training on your own. But if you do have money and you buy Dominoes all the time, maybe even get a program. Because you're better off having some structure going into the gym than going in and shitting yourself because you don't know what to do. At least then if there's 4 or 5 exercises on a sheet, you're like, right, I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I get to leave. And having that kind of sense of accomplishment is going to get the ball rolling for you. And you might stay on that program for, I don't know, maybe 8, 12 weeks, and then you can go from there. But yeah, my number one thing is always that everybody in the gym has felt how you're feeling before. So
you can empathize with they know where you are now, so don't worry. They're not all judging you. They're not all looking at you and saying, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Okay, last one is you've got somebody who's been training a while. They've watched your Instagram. They've seen you do some fantastic lifting, and they're like, maybe I should give that powerlifting thing a try, but I don't know. What do I do next?
Just do it.
So what would you tell them to do?
I tell them to get in contact with a coach. It doesn't have to be me. It could be you. It could be anybody who they have seen and look up to. Just do it. Because I held off for so long where it was like it was literally just because I wasn't sure. But you are sure. You know you want to do it, but you're just nervous as to how the outcome is going to be. So just get in touch with someone, even if you want to have a consultation and have a chat with them, and you're going to love it. It's fun.
Right, very last thing I want to ask you, and then I'll let you leave. What is coming in the future for Shauna Rahaman? Not a me in the next couple of months, because you keep doing meets. What are we doing in 2024? What's some big goals? They can be general, they can be specific. What do we want to do?
Well, the last competition I did, I squatted 2.5 over my best squat in reps, which I know you can't use on IPF. So I think in the future, I definitely want to see where my squat is in reps. I've currently been doing sumo. You're raging. Currently trying a sumo block, so hopefully that'll be better than conventional. And fingers crossed. I actually haven't got any big goals right now. I just want to be better than before. And that sounds super gay, but I just want to always push myself to be better than I was before. Yeah. And once I do that, I'm happy.
Yeah, because I think that's maybe some people don't know about the history is that like, we're like, right, big building block now, but like, oh, I want to do that competition.
I bought a ticket.
And we've gotten to this point now where I actually pushed you to your most recent competition, but we've both agreed we'll take at least a couple of months, experiment with things like sumo deadlifts, see how we get on. And like that, I think by the time we put you back up on the platform, we'll have spent enough time in the development block. You will be a much more well-rounded athlete than even you were at the Christmas qualifier, which was one of your best meets. And then career-wise, you're still ticking all the boxes. Flyefit sword, you're still smashing it. So do you have spaces for PT even? If I was to tell people to... I have 1 or 2 spaces before evenings. Evenings are crazy. So I'll just get people to DM me. Basically.
Yeah, just pop me a message on Instagram and I will let you know what availability I have and hopefully it suits.
Nice one, Shauna. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jan.